Hi, this is Kirk Straightmatter, and I'm going to do a short video on Logos search features for folks that are relatively new to the program. I'm hoping that a combination of video and charts or slides make it easier to follow along and give you a chance to try some of these things out on your own. The top three ways to initiate a search are really the Go Box or Factbook, where you're going to start typing a word and it'll auto-populate hints and recommendations associated with that word or phrase. It's an excellent starting point if you have no idea where to get started. Both GoBox and Factbook are very powerful. We're also going to talk about the search panel and the top two items listed there, as well as the inline search, and that's searching within a resource. Those are the three principal ways that you can initiate a search, but there's many different ways to do it. This is a Logos desktop display of open windows. And you've got two specific panels that are open. The thing I want to highlight right now is the fact that there is what they call the instrument panel at the top. And to initiate searches, it's important that you understand some of the key elements or icons associated with that instrument panel. The first one being the Factbook icon, then the panel search, and the Go box. Those three items are really your areas of entry for searching in Logos from the instrument panel. The inline search is the other item. When you have a specific resource open, then that little magnifying glass, when it's grayed out, is going to show you that boxed area that is active and allows you to search all text, in this case, within that particular resource. The other thing is when you talk about a panel search, which is the magnifying glass up in the upper left-hand side of the instrument panel, it gives you an entire panel search option, which is displayed here. We're going to talk more about the functionality here and actually use this example a little bit later, but this really highlights the key areas that you need to go to be able to implement searches on the Logos desktop. Here is the search panel itself, and we're going to focus on the two features here, the Bible and the Basic. The other four are really more advanced, and 95% of the time you're going to be using the Bible tab or the Basic tab to do your searches within a search panel. When you consider the Bible option, you're going to get an option here that gives you all Bible text and then two fill-out areas. As they show them here, the Bible reference range, in this case all passages, but it could be a number of different options that are listed here. Common divisions is an example where you might be Old Testament or New Testament or Gospels or Pauline letters or that type of thing. And then Bible library scope. So here it gives you the reference to the Bible range that you're looking at. And in number two, it's the library that you're looking at. And it could be a single Bible. It could be all open Bibles. It could be the top Bibles that you've identified as your prioritized resources. It could be tagged elements or series or collections. So it really allows you to scope down the library that you're actually doing the search on. Now we'll jump over to the basics section. And that's a little bit different because it's not focused on the Bible, but everything else in your library. In this case, it's going to default to an all text option, and then the ability to look at items associated with a library reference range. Much like the Bible library scope here, the library reference range could be everything in your library or within the Logos capabilities, the Factbook, the Atlas, all your resources, all open resources, and then you can get to other things like Bibles, top Bibles, collections, and the like. So again, once you figure out what you're going to be looking for, then you have to decide what range you're going to be using to describe or to search within your library or within the Logos capabilities available. The other thing I wanted to highlight is the fact that the sidebar in the search panel is unique. It's not going to be a sidebar where it gives you a table of contents. It actually opens up a number of search templates, and they're located and give you a pre-formatted options for all these different advanced search terms and operators that can be used. And we'll talk a little bit about that in another slide. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about it in this slide. So the search template, when you see this grayed out, it means it's turned on. So normally you'll see a table of contents, but in this case, the sidebar has got a number of search templates. Here, if you hit two people mentioned together, it'll pop up a window and actually walk you through the way to fill out that particular search feature using the details associated with that particular template. Here you'll see it'll say person Peter and person Silas, which is what actually the Logos will fill out when you fill out this box. So as you walk through each of these terms, it will pop up a different prompting box to give you a way to walk through that item, and then it'll populate that search box with the actual terms, so you can get familiar with what they're actually using for the search, but you can have a simplified way of taking advantage of the templates. I'm going to give you two examples of an English word search, and this is one of the most powerful things that you have associated with your translations. The first one is an English word worry in the Gospels, including all Bibles. So here we have the Bible's option open. We type in the word worry, and like I said, in this case, we are looking in the Gospels, and then we're looking at all our open Bibles. In the example I have here, I had the NASB paragraph version and the ESV open at the time. So when I searched worry, it knew that those two were the only open Bibles, and it did a search on the items there. The other thing I want to highlight is here I use the view aligned. Right? You can have 4 different views. This one's the preferred one for me because it shows the particular word lined up over the top of each other within the particular verses being used. One thing to note here is when you search in the Gospels, NASB uses the term worried or worry 17 different times, and you'll see the ESV uses it only once. So it's a good example of how different translations are going to use different English words associated with an underlying lemma. The other example is the English word avoid, and this is with the New Testament included in all my top Bibles. So it's a different feature, and you'll see here it's all Bible text again. I'm searching the entire New Testament, and I'm looking at my top Bibles, which are the top 5 that I have as prioritized resources. Down here, the cool thing is using the grid, it will list every one of the Bibles that I'm looking at, the top 5, and if it's filled out in a solid color, it means that word is used, the term avoid is used for that particular Bible translation in that particular verse. So you can see here that the word avoid in NASB is only used 4 times listed down here. And then you say ESV, LEB, CSB, NIV all have a different number of times that English word avoid is used. So it's 38 results in 38 verses within the 5 resources. If you want to know the number of times it's used in a particular resource, you have to narrow that down from top Bibles and then just select the Bible translation that you want to use. This is one of the more powerful capabilities that you have, and you'll use that grid feature when you want to look across different translations. Here's an example of looking for a phrase, and I use this a lot. Right? I'll remember a specific term or phrase that I know is in there, but I don't know which translation necessarily it applies to. So in this case, I'll use James 1:2, and I'll say, consider it all joy. I'll, in quotes, put that phrase in, and I'll select New Testament under all Bibles because I know that encompasses what I'm looking for. And you'll see I got 3 hits on the resources that use that exact phrase. Now, if I expand it out and I say, okay, count it all joy, you'll see that 17 different resources in my library with all Bibles use that phrase. And NIV isn't in each of those things. So if I look up and I say, consider it pure joy, I see that one resource, the NIV, uses James 1:2 and has that term. So if you're looking for a particular phrase and you cannot remember which verse and you can't get the exact wording, then essentially I'd say use the phrase, put it in quotes, and then open it up to all Bibles and search it. And that's a very fast way I can kind of nail down to a phrase that I'm interested in and which translation. Now we're going to talk about searching within a particular resource. Okay, here we have a panel, so we'll talk about the resource panel. It's that box that's open that you can see, right? So that's the panel. And then I've highlighted here a portion of the panel menu that is important to note. And in that case, I've blown it up here where you've got different details associated with it, but we're going to focus on the magnifying glass that's right here. Not the magnifying glass that's up here that's associated with the opening the entire search panel, but the one with a resource where you want to just search within that resource itself. So that's going to give you an inline search. You'll note here that when you click on that, it goes gray, and then it opens up this search option associated with that particular panel. It may or may not be on when you open a panel, so you can toggle it on and off by using the magnifying glass on the resource. Again, it's easy to confuse the two when you think of the magnifying glass up here, which will open up a search panel, and the magnifying glass here, which opens up an inline search for a resource that is already open. For an inline search, you're not going to have the feature available that gives you the templates on the sidebar, because that's where your table of contents is going to be. So in this case, you're going to have to use, say, search phrases or logic terms within that line to be able to do the advanced searching. So you're going to focus on phrases or more advanced Boolean expressions that I have listed here, like a word near another word or a word within a certain amount of words. So here's an example down here where the terms hinder, hindrance, and obstacle are within 4 words of prayer, pray, prayer, and intercession. You can basically put these things together, and as you get more comfortable with them, you can make more advanced search features. You can also do things like search large text or highlighter or emphasis terms. So there's ways that you can kind of advance those elements. The other thing I do is when I get a big return, I sometimes will walk back the number of within the phrase that we have, say Christ within Messiah, within 10 words, within 8 words, within 5 words. I just change the search term a little to see if I can get something more manageable. I note here that you can do an inline search on a Bible translation, but I prefer the more powerful search panel instead of the inline search because it gives you the templates and also gives you a lot more advanced capabilities to kind of look beyond just one particular resource to a number of resources. I'm going to give you another example of opening a search term for a Greek lemma. In this case, you find a word, say the word explained in John chapter 1 verse 18, and you right click on that word. And what you're going to do is you're going to get essentially what they call a context menu. Now there's a lot of information associated with that menu. Do not sweat all that information. I only focus on a few key areas, but for searching, what I'll normally do is I'll first select the lemma, which is click this area right here, and then I'll go down and I'll initiate a search, which is essentially a search panel search, using the criteria listed here. Either that particular word, the Bible, against everything, all resources. So these two things together are going to give you an option. In this case, you'll see on the left-hand side that I did a search for exogenomai, and then it gave me on my top Bibles, NASB, ESV, and Lexham English being the first 3, that word, and notice how different that word is translated in all the different verses associated with those different translations. It's a good way and a powerful way to look at the way that the different Bibles are going to translate that particular lemma. Also, it gives you new in Logos 9 is an ability to open the fact book associated with that particular Greek verb. An item I wanted to highlight was in the everything search for fact book. So when you have a fact book open, and here's an example of the word Holy Spirit, well, there's synonyms associated with it, and you see it on here, also called advocate or comforter or these other listing items. If you go down the fact book all the way to the bottom and click on search for Holy Spirit, it's actually going to set up a search phrase associated with not only the term Holy Spirit, but everything listed on here as well. So it'll give it to you from a standpoint of looking across whatever set of features are available, but your entire library essentially, or at least where a fact book looks. Things to remember. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight. Consider whether you want the English word or the underlying Greek or Hebrew lemma when you're doing your searches. The panel menu is not something I mentioned, but it allows you to turn on and off the exact matches or forms. Like when I use the term avoid, it will give me back avoiding and avoiding. If you want the exact term, you use the panel menu on the open panel that's doing the searching to kind of narrow down that search. The other thing that you want to do is learn ways to limit your searches by providing additional detail or nesting your search terms, limiting the library of resources through which you're doing the selection, and you can use tags or series or prioritize resource collections. That's a very, very powerful and important way that you're going to limit your searches to the area that you really want to nail. And the third thing is limiting the text fields within your resources. By that I mean sometimes you're just going to want to search the titles of chapters or key headings associated with within a chapter and not all the text itself. That's a more advanced feature, but it's available, and as you get more and more comfortable, that term all text in your panel menu is going to be something you're not going to necessarily default to, but most of the time you will. Well, I hope you found that this quick tutorial on searching within Logos 9 is helpful, both from a standpoint of seeing it from a visual standpoint and then going through and practicing and doing some of these things yourself. Keep it simple. Understand the features and the capabilities available, whether it's going to be the Go box, whether it's the fact book, whether it's the very powerful search panel, or whether it's an inline search. If you master those, or at least get comfortable with them, you're going to be able to turn on some of the powerful features associated with Logos and indexing that's available throughout your library and then all the resources that are either open or available to you. Good luck.